Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and I am totally lost at this point, and I'm hoping that my guests can help me figure out what's going on this show. Getting to those guests, joining me on the show as usual is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom on the Chronic Rift Network. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back.
Thank you.
Ella.
Yes.
How's your schoolwork going?
I am.
You're representing us over there. USA.
I really am. Oh God. It's the fun thing about going to school here is that you do nothing for like 3 months and then everything is due like within 2 weeks. So I've written 2,000 words. I have let's see if I can do math in the middle of the night. 6,000 more words to write, but they're different assignments, so it's broken up.
Okay.
So we'll see.
That doesn't sound too bad, but thank you for representing us over there. Also joining us is someone else. She's joining us once again on Discoverage. It's Mo from Sound of Cosplay. Mo is an Austrian cosplayer, and her article detailing the creation of her Paul Stamets cosplay was featured recently on StarTrek.com. You can find her creations on Instagram at Sound of Cosplay. Mo, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me again.
It's great to have you here. You just tweeted recently today a pic of something that you're working on. Can you tell us what that is? It looked interesting.
Yes, it's the spacesuit, environmental suit, the new fancy outfits they have this season, and I love them so much.
Okay, sure. Okay. This is, there were a lot of comments recently. I'm not sure if this is the same suit, but everybody seemed to like the way that Spock looked in his suit. So is this the same suit?
I'm not sure.
If the butt is really tight, it's the same suit.
Yes.
That's what I was getting at.
It's
there.
exactly that suit.
Okay, good. How long does something like that take to make usually?
It really depends. Usually it's about like 2 months because I have to like spread it out with schoolwork and other stuff in my life.
Sure.
But right now it's going really quickly. Like I've worked on it 2 days and it's already really starting to come together.
Sure.
And I'm having a lot of fun making it because it's a completely new material I'm working with. I haven't worked with before. So that's a lot of fun.
And the quote-unquote hard parts of the suit, are those like foam rubber, or what goes into making those parts?
Yes, that's foam. It's called EVA foam.
Okay.
It's a really high density but really soft foam.
Sure. That's interesting. Gosh, I wish I was good at that. How long have you been doing this? How long do I have to look forward to before I can get as good as you?
Oh, man. I think I've started in 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but also I was always like the kid that just glued stuff together.
Sure.
So it's like I started out in my childhood just like with Star Trek.
I used to love dressing up as a kid, like for Halloween and stuff, but my mom was always sewing costumes for me, so it looks like I've got a way to go. But I love the things that you do. I know that you and Ella met at Destination Star Trek. Have you seen the list of guests so far for this year's Destination Star Trek?
I think Sorry.
Has anybody?
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah.
I have. Anson Mount is coming.
Anson Mount, that's right. Yeah. Anson Mount's going to be there. Looks like Ethan Peck's going to be there. Here's some other names for you: Michelle Forbes, David Warner, Susie Plaxon. Mariana Hill is going to be there. Mariana Hill is an actress who was in my favorite episode of Star Trek: The Original Series, Dagger of the Mind. So I don't know. I could probably fit in the wheel well of a jet, right? If I had like oxygen and like a thick coat, like somebody's done that before. I remember that kid did that. So anyway, that's my plan to get to Destination Star Trek. Mo, are you going to be at Destination Star Trek in England this year?
Yes, definitely.
Amazing. That's great. I had another question for you. I know that you have more than one fandom, and we are close. Let's see, we're about a month away from the release of Avengers Endgame, and people who don't live in America get to see it on the 24th. Americans get to see it on the 26th, or I guess on the 25th if they go late at night. Are you looking forward to Avengers Endgame?
Yes. I mean, I didn't like Avengers Infinity War as much as I would have expected to like it, so I'm kind of
Interesting.
wary of what is coming, but I'm really
Okay,
excited for it.
And I know Ella's excited for it.
I'm really excited. I'm going to cry so much.
Now, a bunch of posters just came out for the movie featuring both the heroes that we know are going to be in the movie who are alive and the heroes who have passed on. And there was a surprise in the fandom because one of those posters features Loki in black and white. And it was presumed that he was dead for good because he didn't die. Of course, when the snap happened, he died before that. But people are thinking maybe he's not dead, or maybe he will be one of the heroes that hopefully comes back when they undo whatever happened.
I don't want to get my hopes up.
That's prudent. That's very prudent of you.
Oh.
People love mashing things together. I wonder if anybody's done a zombie Loki cosplay.
I would be so sad.
Yeah, I think someone has.
Yeah.
Far Syndrome, I think they had like a Loki cosplay with like the blood and the neck brace, which was hilarious.
No.
Okay, sure. It looks cool, but why is that girl crying? She seems really sad about this. Well, thanks so much for joining us again, Mo. Tonight, we're going to talk about this latest episode of Star Trek Discovery. But first, I want to talk about news a little bit. There isn't a ton of news out right now about Star Trek, but we are hearing a little more about what will be happening at the end of this season and where we're going for the next season. Alex Kurtzman, of course, the Star Trek czar, was talking on a panel at Paley Fest in Los Angeles. And he's been very cagey, as you would expect that he would, and he should be. But he's talked specifically to fans' concerns about syncing up with canon, and he said that this season will sync up with canon. It won't be exactly what you expect, but it will add a new dimension on the story that you think you know. So, I guess my question to you guys is, what do you think that might be? What shape do you think that might take? I mean, we know that Pike will be returning to the Enterprise at the end of this season, and we know, of course, Pike's fate in the future. But what do you think that this twist is that we'll supposedly get on what we know?
I guess I'm not clear on the timeline. We're 10 years before the original series now?
Yeah, I think it's 8 or 9 years. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I said that like I was going to have something smart to say afterwards, but I don't. I don't know.
It's around 10 years, yeah. And then I think Pike's his accident, as it were, happens very, very close to the beginning of TOS, maybe like a few months or a year before.
Do we think that we're gonna how many we hit the 9th season of Disco and
yeah, Pike runs into a Flurkin, and you'd never believe that that's why he's in that chair. Oh boy. So anyway, I think that I've had my problems with Alex Kurtzman in the past. I think that if there's one thing that he does do well, it is being diplomatic about this kind of stuff. Not everybody can be a total Zen Buddha the way like a Kevin Feige is, for instance. It's tough to deal with the weight of audiences' expectations and their criticisms of stuff, and I think he's handled that really well. And so this little hint that he's dropped, I'm just kind of wondering, with what we've seen of the way they've dealt with sort of canon issues previously, I just kind of wonder what shape that'll take. But I think that they've done a pretty good job so far. I thought, did I miss something? We were promised some male scants this season, weren't we? And I haven't seen any yet. Where are those?
I've got my eyes freaking peeled, dude. They're nowhere.
Mo, would you ever design and wear a scant costume either for a male or female cosplay?
Yes, for sure. I'm so waiting for those.
I have to confess that I did search up a pattern for one, and I sew a little bit, and I was thinking, maybe I could do that. That might be a fun thing to do.
Do it.
Okay, all right, I've got you guys' votes. So we'll see if I can pull that off. Well, let's get into it. We're here tonight to talk about the 11th episode of Star Trek Discovery, Season 2, Perpetual Infinity. And we're here to break it down for you. Before we start, as always, we're setting a course for the Spoiler Zone listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us. But if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Perpetual Infinity is: Burnham receives the reunion she's been longing for, but it doesn't go quite as she imagined. Giorgio and Tyler sense a disturbing change in Leland. This episode was written by Alan McElroy and Brandon Schultz. McElroy previously wrote An Oboe for Karen this season, and he also wrote the films Spawn, Wrong Turn, and Ballistic X vs. Sever. Brandon Schultz has served as a writer's assistant on Discovery for seasons 1 and 2, and this is interesting. His father was Michael Schultz, who was a prolific director of films like Cooley High and Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, which Brandon appeared in as a child. Before his involvement with Trek, he co-founded Street Legends Inc., an animation and design studio, and is currently working on a reboot of his father's film Crush Groove about the early days of Def Jam Records. The episode was directed by Maya Vervillo. Maya got her start in Hollywood as an editor on shows like Cold Case and the Hawaii Five-0 reboot. She's also directed episodes of Hawaii Five-0 and various other series, and she previously directed the short trek Runaway for Discovery. So before we get into the main body of the episode tonight, I was wondering about you guys' opinion about where we have come so far in this season. And as I mentioned at the beginning, at this point, I don't know if I'm doing it wrong or I'm taking too many notes and not listening, but I am completely lost. I have no idea who's got what, and there's a sphere, and we're in time or we're not in time, or it's 950 years, or it's something else. So one or the both of you, can you guys give me a basic summary of what has happened up to this point and where we are?
Mo?
Oh, wow.
Take it, Mo.
Well, it's very confusing. I mean, there's so much going on.
And there's definitely things that we don't know yet. I get that part.
Yes. But, like, there's the sphere, but the sphere is kind of a person, or not, or it's intelligent,
right,
or something like that. And then there's Leland and Section 31, and so much going on. Yes. I am too confused.
Great. That makes two of us. The sphere was... Oh, so go ahead, please.
We know that... Sorry, I'm not clear on what control even is at this point, but we know that it is operating Leland, or did Leland get destroyed? Because they were like, he downloaded 54%, right, and that's bad, but it's going to be okay. But didn't they blow up the planet he was on? So is he... But
they detected a transporter signal, so he presumably got to his ship.
Okay.
So nuking it from orbit is not the only way to be sure. Yeah, I just think that it's so, I'm okay with, it's fine. Now that Star Trek is doing this serialized storytelling, it's not all going to be wrapped up, by the end credits. And we all just say, oh, there'll be no trouble at all. And then we just fly off to the next thing. But I find that I am losing elements of the plot. And I'm not sure if it's because that I'm not paying attention, or they're not, or they're being underexplained or just introduced, just offhand. And the biggest mystery for me is this sphere. Like we see in Star Trek all the time, our heroes will run into some object, some artifact that is, a catalog of a ancient aliens race's knowledge or something like that. And that seems to be what we have. But this thing has got all this information about AI, and it seems to be very important. It's very important to Control's plan to become a more powerful AI. But then we get the bombshell drop that apparently Dr. Burnham, Gabrielle's Burnham's mother, has put this sphere in the path of Discovery. Like it just was maybe doing its own thing, but she sort of nudged it in their direction so that they would get their hands on this data? Like, is that what I'm supposed to get from this episode?
She wanted them to be able to destroy it.
Right.
So she was like, she dumped it in their lap.
Right. And it was destroyed, but did she plan on them, basically copying that data? Because that basically just, that negates the fact that it was destroyed.
I think she relied on them keeping the data from Section 31 for some reason. Mm-hmm. Or that they would be the least likely to give it to Section 31.
Interesting. And do you think then that she was relying on her daughter's involvement, like her daughter's capability and doggedness? Because it just seems like in all of her dialogue, there is this real inevitability that she talks about, how like, I've seen you die hundreds of times. You're going to die hundreds of more times. You see where Burnham gets her sort of stubbornness from, and that's a line in the episode, in that, Dr. Burnham feels like, I can fix this. Okay, look, I've got a time travel suit. Just let me do this thing. And they're like, no, we're trying to help you. And so I wonder if she's just, 780 logs or whatever, 783 logs or 841 logs or whatever it is, like, is she totally lost? Does she have any idea what she's doing anymore? Like, does she really need our heroes' help, or should our heroes? I got the impression from these two episodes, like last week's episode and this week's episode, kind of feel like, a part one and a part two. And I don't know what we accomplished. Like, it seems like we just kind of got in the way of the real hero, who is the Red Angel. And if we had just left her alone, maybe Leland wouldn't have ended up with 54% of the data, which, Star Trek, this was a great opportunity to have it be 47% of the data, but whatever, we'll give them that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, should our characters have just stayed out of this?
If she has been bouncing around this much, why hasn't she figured it out? What is Disco going to be able to do that she can't, I guess?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like, from their perspective, it's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense because what Ella said, what are they supposed to do? But from what we know now, she seems pretty like, she's like Burnham, as you said.
Yeah.
She's probably also pretty confused and trying to solve this on her own. So, like, now it makes sense. But from the things we knew before this episode, it was really like, what were they supposed to do?
Yeah, and they make a point of like, why couldn't she have encountered the sphere herself? And they make a point that the suit has, like, unlimited data storage, so she could, like, take the data and then just go to the future or whatever. Maybe she didn't have a way to interface with it, linguistically, because that was sort of what they did in that one episode. But yeah, it's just, I know they have a plan, because they're not just building this up piecemeal, like this was the plan the entire time, but I don't see it all yet, and it's frustrating to me. I think another big revelation in this episode, assuming that Dr. Burnham isn't lying, is that she doesn't know what the signals are. So I guess we can bring that question back, like, what are the signals? Who's doing them?
That part tripped me out. I was, yeah. I mean, like, what are you even talking? That's been the whole thing all season.
Yeah.
What do we do now?
You know what they are. Come on. Yeah. Yeah, it's.
I mean, she could have been lying.
She could have been, yeah. But, boy, I don't know. You guys have heard the theory, of course, or I don't know, maybe not. There's a theory that Burnham will get her hands on the suit somehow, and so yes, this version of the Angel at this point, it is Burnham's mother, but Burnham, will become the Angel later on in kind of a bootstrap paradox situation.
That would be smart. Because that beyond the, like, mother-daughter mitochondrial whatever is very similar. If they're like, she's like, it's like a passing down of the suit.
Who said that last week? You guys look, I don't know what you were looking like, but you guys were like, what? And I was like, come on, mitochondrial DNA. I've watched Star Trek. I know how Star Trek works. I know how this works. Let's talk about what is going on with Leland. What do you think? Do you think that, okay, let me just cut down to brass tacks here. Are we seeing the birth of the Borg? Is that what's happening? Seems pretty Borgy.
I hadn't even
Maybe.
thought about that.
Yeah.
I was like instantly when it happened, like that looks very Borg.
Yeah.
But also the like how it changed his body and how they later made it look like it looked very not Borg again. So maybe not.
If you're an AI, like a computer program, and you're gonna take over a dude's body, nanites is gonna be the way that you do it, right? So you're gonna have that in common no matter what. But the sort of like veiny thing, that he had on his hand and his face just seemed like what we see in First Contact, like the way that Borg start assimilating humans and stuff. And so they're either just working off of something that's very similar, or they're definitely trying to drop us some hints, and I'm not sure which one it is.
I guess I kind of thought the Borg came from like really far away,
The Delta
but I don't
Quadrant?
know.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I also thought that, but of course we have a ship that can easily reach the Delta Quadrant. So I don't know. Maybe they grab Leland, they spore drive out to the Delta Quadrant, just drop him off. Be like, that's fine. You don't have to worry about that anymore.
Like, it's done. It's over.
Yep, that ain't gonna be a problem.
That won't come back to bite us in the butt later.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. And if it does, we'll have Guinan to make kung fu poses at him and at the queue, and yeah, it'll be fine. Let's talk about the future. And, of course, in this episode, Dr. Burnham specifically mentions that she jumps 950 years in the future. There is a Star Trek short trek called Calypso, in which we meet the Discovery at a point that is said, I think, to be around 1,000 years in the future. I can't imagine that that's a coincidence.
No, and we still don't know, like, if any of the short treks, not any of them, obviously the Tilly one kind of fits in, but if the other ones are going to fit into this season, right? Because they didn't really do anything with them.
Yeah. I saw a tweet from a former guest on the show, Keith DeCandido, who I think he was just playing around, but he basically was saying, look, it's easy. All we need is we need to recrystallize dilithium to generate a power source, and we're going to need like an AI to do this. And we need people that look like robots or something, or robots that look like people. And I'm not sure how the Kelpian fits in, but his theory is that we were given these kind of puzzle pieces we didn't know that there was a puzzle yet, but now we should be able to sort these things out and fit them in somehow.
Only Keith could put that together.
Yeah, well, he would. Yeah. So I've been keeping my eye on that, but I'm not sure yet. I mean, if you say Control decided that humans were too unpredictable, their flesh was too weak, although Leland takes quite a few blasts and he's just fine in this episode, and so it decides to switch to something mechanical. Maybe he gets his hands, or Control that is, gets its hands on Mudd's robots or something like that, and who knows what might happen.
Oh wow, that's a cool theory.
Yeah,
that would be crazy.
What's the status of the Soong family right now? Where is it? Which Soong are we on? Because maybe we're seeing, the birth of some of the technology that will lead to Data. This is all speculation. It's the kind of speculation that Star Trek fans love to do. So, what else? What else happens in this episode? Were you guys disappointed? I wanted to kind of see, like, we're told that there are over 800 logs, and we see a couple of them. I almost wanted an entire episode that was just from Dr. Burnham's point of view. Maybe we'll get a short trek or something like that, where we see her trying and failing. We learn that she has been able to watch Burnham, go through her life, and so she's aware of everything that's happened to Burnham. She seems to know about Giorgio. She seems to know about the fate of Pike. So she has been around this old galaxy of ours at least a certain period of time. And so I wanted to see, instances of her going, like, log 347, I'm going to try to do this and this, and just watch that not work. And does that just lead to that timeline ending up being controlled, or destroyed by Control? I kind of want to see more of that. Like, that was the fact that they rushed past that was a little frustrating for me.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, I want that episode. Because I want to understand her.
Mm-hmm.
it would be interesting but also frustrating because we know how it ends every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wonder about the lengths that she is going to sort of stop this thing, because it seems like she seems really intense. She seems like she's tried and done a lot of things, and I wonder if she has to worry about how her actions will affect the future, or if she makes some change. Like, is that the world that because we see that just in the films, Spock does this one thing. He tries to stop Romulus from blowing up, and he ends up in a completely different timeline where the guy from Chips's kid is Captain Kirk. So, I'm just wondering if they are leading to some kind. I mean, with timelines at this point, I think the fans would go crazy and riot if we said that this was some different timeline. But the fact that she is affecting and playing with time and trying to change time, I wonder how that's going to finally resolve by the end of the season. I like the fact that Saru was immediately against deleting the data. He's like, I did all this work to get the data. My ganglia fell out and everything. And you guys want to delete it? And then, of course, he's a good officer, so he's like, okay, I guess we're going to delete it.
I'm thinking that she's either lying about the red signals, going back to Dr. Burnham, she's either lying about the red signals, or it's just some weird time thing where she's on a different level of not consciousness, but knowledge / reality.
Okay, interesting.
So she kind of knows what's going on, because her whole thing with I saw everything. I saw your graduation. It's how though? So I don't know, I guess we just need to hear more from her.
Yeah, don't you remember, Burnham, when you were getting your diploma and that huge red anomaly appeared in the sky? People wondered what that was. Yeah, that was strange. Do you guys think that if the data ends up in Disco's computer, I guess it's already there, do you think that is why Disco becomes self-aware eventually in the short trek Calypso?
Oh yeah, that's what I thought of, because it's very it sounds very unlikely that a normal computer, the computers we know from the ships, would just become self-conscious and persons. So something to start that would have to happen, I think.
Sure.
And that would fit with many things that are appearing in this episode or in this season.
Yeah. You couldn't just leave a tricorder on a desk for 1,000 years and it becomes Mr. Tricorder. You're going to have to add a little something extra. Yeah. Another thing about the Red Angel and her sort of interferences is, and just what timeline are we in, is it when she goes spying on Burnham's life after she leaves it that she sees something like Burnham gets chased through the woods by a spider thing, and so because Burnham doesn't die before, right? Or did Burnham die before in the original timeline, and then she goes, whoa, my kid got killed by a spider thing, I better go back and change that. How much has she been manipulating things?
Yeah, does she just know when everything is going to happen? Does she she's got a spidey sense for when Michael's in danger, but it's when would it go off if she's in the future / bouncing all over the place?
Yeah, it sounded very much like she was just creating a universe, a new parallel universe every time, because she changes so much. And the thing that she saw Michael die so often, it sounded well, she died in this universe, better jump back and save her, and that would be a new universe, because actually she died. Right.
Oh, they forgot my fries at the drive-thru. Better jump back in time and put those fries in there. It feels like it reminds me of Groundhog Day, only instead of 1 day,
yes.
It's all of our timeline. Yes. She just keeps I got to save that kid coming out of the tree. I got to learn to play the piano, but it's just stretched over 1,000 years. I thought that it was very interesting for them to use a Hamlet quote in this episode, where
I loved that.
Yeah, because it was, who was it? Somebody quotes Hamlet. Spock quotes Hamlet to her.
It's back, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm not sure about the implications of that. Like, does Spock remember that Hamlet kills his step parent and talks to the ghost of his other parent? Like, it seems like a very ominous quote for a woman about to go see her long lost mother.
Which
But also
also did Michael? Am I hearing things, or after he said that, did Michael go Hamlet? Hell yeah!
Hell yeah!
Yeah, she's like, hell yeah!
Oh my god!
Hell yeah! That's how I feel about.
I literally backed it up. I backed it up to watch it again. I was like, what's happening?
So every week, my opinion of Leland is challenged, and now it's sort of taken out of my hands because after he got stabbed in the eye, he's just bad. Like, whether he wants to be or not, he's bad now. So I guess I was originally right that he was a bad guy, even though he doesn't seem to be a willing one. But I like the fact that he is able to play on, or at least initially, on Giorgio's pride and his her greed, her desire to, even though she pretends that she doesn't care, she does feel like a mother figure to this universe's Burnham, and so he's like, well, she's got her real mom now. She doesn't need you anymore, and that's sort of like what at least initially motivates Giorgio to be like, all right, let me get involved in this thing.
I love her like begrudgingly being like, yeah, I guess I care about something and I'm not in my universe anymore.
Yeah. And then we have, of course, a face-off between the two mother figures. And I have a question, and this has been something that has been persistent in Discovery. Why do all secret devices in this universe have flashing lights and beeping sounds? Like if you're going to stick a secret data siphon on something, go with the Tony Stark one. Just, no lights. It's just quiet, just sits there. But everything is beeping and flashing. And somebody, Stamets or somebody's like, what's this? Is this a thing?
It's because there's already so many flashing lights on every control surface that one
if
more
it didn't have a lens flare, people would be like, what is this thing?
Exactly.
There's a great and intense encounter, of course, between Burnham and her mother in this episode, and it's great acting. It's great intense acting by both actors in this scene. So her mom has watched her. She's the guardian angel of this thing. I guess we don't know what the signals are. So the outlier for me is, why the church? Why did she save that church full of people? I still don't understand.
That really bothers you.
It was a nice thing to do, but it's going to have to come back somehow.
Will it?
Maybe not. You don't think that? Boy, I don't even know. I did like that. It seems like as the resident Klingon, Tyler has kind of inherited the Worf mantle in this episode. In that he encounters like a supreme physical being and just gets his ass handed to him like in a fight.
Okay. Also, that made me like, I felt so guilty about what I said last week about Ash. I was so mad last week about Ash and Michael kissing, and then this episode I was like, oh no, wait. Like, I was like, this is my fault.
Boy, yeah, but he will hopefully be. I mean, you can get stabbed. That's not a problem, right?
Yeah, I was like, wait, is he gonna die? But then, like, oh, it's Star Trek. They're just gonna heal him within, like, 2 minutes.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah. And I'm assuming being changed or altered to be more human means that he doesn't have the, the organ redundancies and all the defenses that Klingons have. But, yeah, he's gonna be okay. Anything else before we talk about what's going to come up next week? Anything else that you guys want to talk about?
I just really love Ethan Peck as Spock. I think he's doing such a great job, and I think that he has like just enough resemblance to in his acting, to Leonard Nimoy's Spock in his like voice for him to be recognizable as Spock.
Yeah.
but a much younger, like he's so different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I love watching him on screen. Spock has
Yeah.
always been my favorite character. I can talk about it.
He does such a great job. It's so cool. I mean, I always thought it was just me listening to English voices sounding the same, but I really think he sounds like Leonard Nimoy, and that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm really amazed by his delivery every time and his voice.
Yeah, he has been pretty consistently great. And I should mention that it was Leonard Nimoy's birthday this week, and of course DC Fontana's birthday this week as well, the writer who did a lot to develop the character of Spock. So happy birthday to both of them. Okay, let's talk about what we saw on the teaser in our forward-looking segment where we look at what's coming up on the show. At this point in all of our questions that we've had previously, what are the lights? Who's the angel? How is Spock involved? We're down to what are the lights at this point. We pretty much know who the angel is, or at least we think we do. We know how Spock was involved, and again, they hit again in this episode the idea that being unique and intelligent, and also being specifically having this lecturi is, what made him the perfect sort of receptacle for figuring out this time brain thing. So we see in the preview that they mention they're going to a planet. The planet is called Boreth, and we know from past TNG episodes that is there's a Klingon monastery there that Worf goes to in the episode Rightful Heir, and he has he's trying to have a vision of Kahless.
I forgot about that.
You guys remember that? That's the one where basically Kahless appears, and it turns out that Kahless is their Kahless is a clone of the original Kahless that they're trying to sort of pawn off as being Kahless returned.
Yeah.
So I think that's
so wild.
Yeah, that's a very significant reference there. And of course, we've seen previously that the Klingon child, who I don't even know if he has a name, but Vok and Tyler's baby is there. So maybe we'll get L'Rell, or sorry, Vok and Tyler. I guess that is Vok and Tyler's baby. It's also L'Rell's baby. I think that L'Rell will be in the next episode.
She was in the teaser, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I think so. It flashes by so
yeah,
fast.
I thought that was
barely
her.
know.
Yeah.
I just thought of something weird, which is not new at all, but people were so upset about people's hair and ears or whatever. I don't remember anybody saying anything about her being blue. Like, I don't think we've ever seen a blue Klingon
really
before.
Blue.
Yeah. Blue is fine. Bald, that's not going to work, I guess. But yeah. How do you think that the Klingons will be connect to all this? How can they connect to all this? Is the Klingon baby Azor Ahai? That's what I need to know. I've been thinking about Game of Thrones a lot recently.
Well, what is Ash gonna go down to the monastery, and what will he do there? I guess is the question. Or no, that's where they left the baby.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, well, they said that they were sending it to a monastery in the episode where he just bails on his kid.
I just remembered that right now. They left the baby at a monastery.
Yeah, I mean, we've come a long way since the first episode of this, since Brother. So,
oh my God,
you're totally forgiven for having forgotten some details. It's a lot to keep straight. Well, I hope that I hope that the baby has a better future involved for it than just becoming the albino. Do you know what I mean? People have sort of people have theorized that the baby will become the albino. Having that pale or blue skin certainly would help in that direction. But don't do that. Do something else.
Well, and I feel like everyone's always looking for something to connect to the other series.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how much the writers are actually thinking about that. Like when they're writing it, are they planning that far ahead. I mean, in some aspects, I'm sure they are, but I feel like in some things, maybe they're just like writing this and they're like, oh, like, haha, they think he's the albino. He's just some kid.
Oh yeah, I think so too. Like some things are just things they wrote because they wanted to write it because it fits in, and people are just making crazy theories. But that's what we're all doing, so.
I wonder if it's significant that, this season started clearly with a theme of faith and like religious faith. And other than just sort of faith in maybe yourself or your crewmates, I don't feel like that has been reinforced in the sort of middle part of the season. But this next signal is going to appear above a Klingon monastery. We had another signal appear above this sort of multi-faith community. So I wonder if how are the signals related to faith or like religious faith, if they indeed are.
Also, I liked
oh my God, the Star of Bethlehem. Oh my God, that was the first signal. Okay. Men are going to come in, and if I'm dragged away in the next minute, that's what happened, okay? Men took me away because I figured it out. Sorry, go ahead.
I totally lost it. It's gone.
Sorry, that truth bomb just blew it all away. Sorry about that.
It did.
We've got a little baby. Yep, that's what's happening. Okay, well, I figured it out. Shut it down. Shut it all down.
This episode just left, like, it didn't really answer anything.
No.
You know
no.
what I mean? It just caused a lot of, like, now we just have all these questions. Like, we don't really know what's going on.
Only more confusion.
Yeah, it felt like this one and the last one felt like if you were in a river, like canoeing, and your canoe tipped over, and now the river is just pulling you, down the river towards some falls or some horrible end, and there's like a log or like a sandbar. There's like a spot where you stop for a little bit and you think, okay, catch my breath, and then the current takes you again. Like we just sort of paused for a bit, and when you've got, this is originally going to be like what? 12 episodes, and they extended it to 14 or whatever it was. You have to have episodes like this to take a break for a while, and you kind of focus on one thing. That's fine, but that's why I was asking before, like, should I like spending more time with our characters, but really, as far as the story goes and what's happening, like, our characters probably shouldn't have done anything, because all they did was just hang around this Essos for like 2 episodes, and then the bad guy got some of what he wanted. But who knows?
Yeah, I think this season, like, I personally really missed those, like, filler episodes that were just, like, really chill and just here for the characters. That's, like, not at all happening this season.
Right. Yeah. What is this Discovery's version of Luxana Troy? Like, what is the episode where we just take a mud bath for an hour and, nothing, the world doesn't end. I don't think we get that on Discovery. Not yet.
Yeah, no,
I know
no
every
time for that.
Now, every episode now is like 100% like Burnham like drama with the captain.
Yes.
And then Tilly has one funny line in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. I'm really like waiting for Calmets to reunite. I'm like so waiting for it, and it's not happening.
Yeah, I love the fact that they get Burnham's mother, and they're talking about, okay, well, I guess we'll go talk to her. And Burnham's like, it's like, no, Burnham, you have to stay here. She's like, what? But she didn't do that thing that Discovery officers always do, which is run off and do their own thing. She did follow orders.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that is just about it. Unless you guys have something else to say about this episode, I think that we are pretty much done.
There's only 2 more episodes left in the season, right?
3, I believe.
Yeah.
3?
Yeah.
How are they going to resolve it in 3 episodes? I can't imagine.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm worried that we're not going to learn everything. Like, what if we get to that last episode and we don't know anything about the red signals, and it's just like, but we spent this whole time.
Oh God, yeah.
But then Giorgio can go discover, them in her series. We'll just pass it off.
You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
It'll all be, it's all a plan. It all works together. Well, that is it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EIST Pod for updates and to get